Okay, so the first question under debate was the rise of Nazism in Germany inevitable? Speaker order, Beatrice is starting. Oh no.
I broke Ray.
He simply took a risk.
No.
You can't even close the baby. When Max is going, I'll put up this one.
P. I love you, G. Okay, so do you have a general introduction slide first? Okay, Beatrice, I'll start with your timing when you begin. You may go.
Today, Christy Hardick and I are going to be arguing the proposition that the rise of Nazism in Germany was inevitable. At the beginning of the 1930s, the economic situation in Germany was so desperate that it was inevitable that voters would embrace Nazism because Nazi policies were so well targeted at their deepest concerns. In any country, if a party can address the issues that voters care the most about, it is certain that they will be elected. So what were the two issues that Germany cared the most about at the beginning of the 1930s? First, they had no jobs. Second, they had no money. So, the Nazis put all of their campaigning effort into addressing those two issues. Before the Nazis came to power in 1933, over 30% of Germans had no job, according to SpartacusEducational.com. But in the Nazi Party's 1933 election campaign, they promised that if they gained power, they would abolish unemployment, which is exactly what they achieved by 1939. From this graph, you can see how popular this made Nazism with the German voters. When the voters give you this much credit for addressing their major concern, it is inevitable that you will be elected. Now let's consider how the Nazi policy addressed the second major concern of the voters, their lack of money. After a decade of hyperinflation had wiped out the people's savings in Germany, and with real wages dropping by 7% over the prior 3 years, there was widespread poverty in Germany. The Nazis' policies sought to increase wages as a priority. In this graph, you can see the failing wage levels before they came to power, and the 8% real increase in wages after they came to power, as described in the Longman Companion to Nazi Germany. In the 1930s, Nazism and its policies were a perfect fit with the two main priorities of the German voters. As a result, it was massively popular in Germany, making the rise to Nazism inevitable.
142. Time. Chime, that doesn't mean you have to stop. It's like a warning noise, and then I'll give you 10-15 seconds to draw it to a close. Okay? Okay, Hardick, you can start.
So it can be argued that the rise of Nazism in Germany was not inevitable, as Nazism was rapidly declining in popularity. According to BBC, the time before the Great Depression, when Germany was flourishing, is considered to be a lean year for Nazism, as they received only 2.6% of the votes. However, the change in circumstances from a flourishing Germany to a Germany devastated by the Great Depression led to the rise of Nazism. There was increased poverty and unemployment in Germany, which Hitler took advantage of to rise to power. This was all possible due to the Dawes Plan. The Dawes Plan, according to Holocaust Encyclopedia, was a plan created by the Americans to help Germany in paying the huge war reparation issued by the Treaty of Versailles. However, when the stock market crashed, American demands for their money left the economy of Germany devastated. This change in circumstance was the outcome of the Treaty of Versailles, resulting in the inevitable rise of Nazism in Germany.
Okay, Christy. Sorry, we are ready for you. You may begin.
No?
Yeah.
Okay. So to conclude our group's idea, Nazism in Germany is inevitable through many different aspects such as social, economic, and political disarray that forced Germany to be in. Based on the DBQ packet, Hitler's leadership made the Nazism inventable as he shown strong leadership by listening to ideas and give people what they want. Hitler changed lives for the Germans as he put the country back on track and led Germany with pride and confidence. This shows how Hitler showed the others that leadership that the treaty wouldn't happen to the Germans. The Nazism in Germany is important as the Germans was being blamed as they started the World War I. So Hitler created a party for them to fight against the blame. Therefore, the Nazism in Germany is inventable. Hitler wasn't the only leader that had great leadership that led the country with great success. There are more, such as Martin Luther King, Muhammad Gandhi, etc. MLK led the civil rights movement from 1954 until 1968, while Gandhi led India to independence and inspired movement for civil rights and freedom across the world. So as Beatrice mentioned, the meaning of inventable before, the Nazism in Germany is inevitable as it already happened, so it makes sense that our plan is true.
Thank you. All right. So you guys can step aside for now. You'll be back up for rebuttal shortly. And the opposition can come on up. You can airplay if you have slides, if you need to airplay. And I'll tell you when to start. Give me a second.
Wait, you're gonna get so thrown off by my looks.
I'm sorry. Where do you like?
Are you staring at me? Chris, you're gonna get so thrown off from this corner over here. You're gonna get so thrown off. So, completely derail your argument. Look how unorganized they are.
Good luck, guys.
Guys, what's the order?
Good luck,
Chris Puja.
Chris.
Yeah.
And Puja. And good luck.
Okay.
Okay, so to counter that opinion, and audience, listen up because you have to decide the winner. We have, our next group will argue that the rise of fascism was not inevitable. Christopher, you may begin. Nazism, fascism in Germany was not inevitable. Okay?
Huh, Max,
Put
I'd be
that
pretty
anywhere.
embarrassed.
Yeah, that's distracting. Okay, you can start it.
If the countries in charge of the Treaty of Versailles had not turned to blame Germany, the Nazis could have been avoided. So the purpose of the Treaty of Versailles was to cripple Germany, and that's what it did. Article 231 of the treaty said that the Allied and associated governments affirm and Germany accepts the responsibility of Germany and her allies for causing all the loss and damage to which the Allied and associated governments and their nationals have been subjected as a consequence of the war imposed upon them by the aggression of Germany and her allies. Article 160 said the German army is restricted to 100,000 men. On top of both of these articles, Germany had to pay 20 billion gold marks, which is more than 500 billion US dollars. The treaty obviously devastated Germany, but it devastated them even more when the Great Depression happened, as it struck an already weakened country. By 1933, already 6 million Germans were out of their jobs. Germany was now both politically and economically unstable. and was at a distinct disadvantage towards other countries. Obviously, because of this, many Germans had opposed the treaty and thought that it was unfair and ignorant. This caused many riots and many assassinations towards many believed politicians who many thought were to blame for. Hitler, seeing all this, used it as a leverage for power and took advantage of this, as he was known to be a charismatic and rebellious leader. So, in the end, we can conclude that due to the inefficiency and treaty flaws, along with the Great Depression, Hitler rose to power. It is also important to note that during these times, Germany had a weak government to react towards all this, which Pooja will now talk about. Thank you.
Give me a moment.
She says what he said.
Chris, good work.
Thanks, Seb.
Chris, nice hot states.
Okay, Pooja, you can start.
Although it is true that Hitler was highly charismatic and an amazing speaker, with one man even saying that he felt like he was under a spell when Hitler spoke, was the rise of Hitler inevitable, DBQ source. And although Hitler was the head of the Nazi Party in Germany, if the Weimar government in Germany was stronger, the Nazi Party likely wouldn't have been as supported by Germany, regardless of Hitler's speaking skills. Unfortunately, the Weimar government was weak in a number of ways. It was weak constitutionally because of proportional representation, where parties gained seats in proportion to the number of votes cast, historyhit.com. The Weimar government also was distrusted a little bit by the Germans because they could make emergency decisions which did not have to go through the usual democratic procedures. This feature was sometimes abused. Political change, Weimar Constitution. The economic situation of Germany, as Chris described, coupled with the weakness of the Weimar government, made the people desperate, and that is why the Nazi regime began. However, if the Weimar government did not follow proportional representation, or if they were stronger, or if the Great Depression didn't happen, or if the Treaty of Versailles wasn't so intense, then the people of Germany wouldn't have voted the National Socialist Party. There'd be no need for the Nazi Party to take over. Going further on that point, there were many other government parties that existed in Germany during that time, and any of them could have taken over. In conclusion, there were many variables that had to be in place in order for Nazism to occur in Germany. And if one thing changed, it likely may not have occurred. That's why that Nazism in Germany was not inevitable. Gray will close us now. Thank you.
Swag.
Swag.
Ready? You may begin.
Ultimately, based on our research, we believe that the rise of Nazism in Germany was not inevitable and could have been avoided had we not undergone a few key mistakes made in the early 20th century, such as the Great Depression, the Treaty of Versailles, and the weaknesses of the Weimar government. As we've said, the Great Depression caused a large economic strain on Germany, which left many in poverty. Additionally, the Treaty of Versailles caused mass unemployment, inflation, and it hurt the national pride many Germans felt. These factors were key to the rise of Nazism in Germany, as they left Germans unemployed, poor, and desperate. And it was Hitler who enraged Germans using these factors, and this is what allowed him to gain popularity. Finally, had the Weimar government been designed more robust and efficient, Hitler would not have the support or means to rise to power, as many felt due to the ineffectiveness of the Weimar government and the economic issues I stated earlier. Many felt they had no choice but to support extremist parties such as the Nazis. Additionally, had the Chancellor not been given so much power, and had he not been able to pass through the democratic process to gain power, Hitler would have not been able to consolidate his power the way he did, and ultimately Hitler would have never come into the position of power that he did. This is why we believe Nazism in Germany was preventable, and we had simply just made a few very big mistakes in the early 20th century.
Okay, now I'm giving you 2 minutes of prep time. It already started. And in 2 minutes, you guys need to come up for a 2-minute rebuttal. And then we're going to do it in 1 minute. So you guys should also be planning your rebuttal to them now. So you won't have an additional 2 minutes later.
Talk about that.
Who's rebutting?
Me first.
And then,
Oh wait.
Yes, it does. The only exception that doesn't have is you can do it. I can do it.
no, we're just going to go boom, boom, chop, chop style. Okay. Okay, it's time for our first rebuttal opportunity. Let's go with 2 minutes.
Couldn't dress up today, but I chose not to.
Chrissy, we need you up there. Let's go. Your timing is starting now, whether you're up there or not. Ready and go. Audience, listen.
Well, we think that Nazism in Germany is inventable because the meaning of inventable is certain to happen, and it's unavoidable. So therefore, you can't avoid the past, which means that the Nazism in Germany already happened, and yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, that's facts.
Okay, 1 second, Gray.
Great. There are always facts.
Okay, Gray, you're on the clock with your rebuttal opportunity. You may begin.
So I'd like to rebut about what Beatrice said. She brought up wages and unemployment a lot throughout her speech. And at that point, it was understandable why Nazism would have gained popularity, and signs would have pointed to an extremist party like that rising. But what's important is to step back and understand how we got here, and why that was not inevitable. It was ultimately the Treaty of Versailles, which was so biased against Germany, and had it been written less harsh on Germany, more reasonably, then ultimately we would not have seen the inflation, the unemployment, and the poverty that we did. So ultimately, if the Treaty of Versailles had been written more fairly, then we would never have seen those issues, and people would have no reason to support such an extremist party like the Nazis. They only did so to escape their dire situation. But if they weren't to face that inflation and poverty that the Treaty of Versailles forced upon Germany, Nazism would have no way to rise the way it did.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a good little rebut.
GG
Okay.
right there.
So because of so we don't run into a time problem later, our second round of rebuttal will be a 1-minute rebuttal opportunity. Do you guys have somebody going up?
Yeah.
Hardick's going up? Okay.
Comeback season.
Alright, Hardick, you can start.
Okay. So to begin with, I'd like to quote what my opposition has said. So they said, if the countries in charge would have been stronger, if the Treaty of Versailles would not have been so biased, had this happened. Well, if pigs had wings, then we'd have to climb trees to get bacon. But the truth is that pigs don't have wings. So the truth is that pigs don't have wings. And what really happened was that the Treaty of Versailles made Nazism inevitable. I acknowledge everything that Grace said, that we take a step back and acknowledge how the Treaty of Versailles made Germany in such a dark condition. But what is also true is that the Treaty of Versailles led to the inevitable rise of Nazism. Because of the Treaty of Versailles, there was all these problems, all these dire situations, as Gray had said, that led to the Germans voting for Nazis.
Okay, we'll have to stop you right there. I'd like to personally thank you for quoting the pigs with wings story.
Great. Make sure she defines
You
it,
should
like,
say,
what
yeah, I
this
know where
word's
you're
actually
coming
about. It's not like hypothetical.
Okay,
Never mind.
let me just think for 1 second. So this is our the last word will go to the opposition from Pooja. Okay, and Pooja, you have a 1-minute rebuttal opportunity. Audience, let's listen. You may begin.
Christy said that inevitable means unavoidable, that the Nazism in Germany, it was unavoidable that it would happen. But just like Hardick said, there's so many ifs. If. We keep saying if, and that means that if one thing had gone differently, it's not unavoidable. Christy said it was literally unavoidable. But what we're saying is that if one thing was different, that it could have changed everything, and Nazism may not have happened in Germany. And nothing is inevitable. Yeah.
That's facts.
Now, so the Russia and Germany groups, Russia and Japan groups, you guys get to vote on who you think won that debate. So go to the email, follow the link to the Google form, and cast your ballots. This is B4. Okay? You guys don't vote on your own debate, because I know who you think won. I already know that. Because I'm a mind reader. It's cool, huh? In the meantime, we need to pick who's going next. I didn't even pick that. I was going to do it before. So, is it Japan or Russia? Let's see.
Japan, but I want to go.
You got it.
B4.
And the next debate will be Japan. Russia.
That's okay.
Mr. Red,
Evidence.
Wait, so
Not rigged. Not a rigged election. Yes, great.
Permission to play the US random violently while they speak.
No, permission denied, but request was
it was
amusing.
not.
Yeah, just don't come in when somebody's speaking if you have to pee. Okay? Oh.
Can we vote for ourselves?
Don't vote on your own debate.
I'm gonna vote on my own debate and give myself MVP.
Okay, we have to keep it moving. Oh! Duh, Mr. Ratner, you are such a doofus.